Next, we're going to talk about our contribution to Alcohol Awareness Week in a way that you don't see on the government's commercials about the problem.
What are you going to ask me?
I'm going to ask you what the hell you were doing in the drunk tank. The provincial government recently launched its Alcohol Awareness Week. Deadly serious, and it was very good. The commercials on alcohol as a drug are most impressive. And they've done a lot. Let's not kid ourselves. They've got 28 outpatient clinics for alcohol and other drugs. They've got 6 detox centres funded with a total of 128 beds. And the people in them are not scabby, they're not covered in vomit, they're not ridden with lice. One is the Pender Street Detox, and the other is the brand new Maple Cottage on the grounds of Woodland, where they have 24-hour care 7 days a week. There are a number of residential beds and residential treatment centre, and there are plans underway for a new compulsory detox to be opened somewhere or other. About 65 beds in it. Brian, that's all very well and good, but what's the difference between these places and the detox centre that you spent 2 nights in?
The difference there, they want to be cured. The ones you were talking about. They want to be cured. They get the white glove treatment. Come on in, nice and neat and tidy. Let's get fixed up, spend a couple of days there. The difference with the drunk tank at the Vancouver jail, 5th floor, they don't want to be cured. Hardcore drinkers, all they want to do is get the next bottle. They don't want to be cured.
How many people have died in that drunk tank recently that you know of?
There's been 2 this year, and the average is 3 to 4 each year.
Now, there was one particular case which made us look into this matter. What case was that?
This involved the busiest day that the drunk tank has had this year, and one of the busiest days ever. It was the Sea Festival weekend, the 27th and 28th of July. 133 people were booked into the drunk tank on that particular weekend, each of them spending their 4 hours, and then they're turned out on the street again to whatever, go for another drink or whatever.
And a man called David Nathan Brockman, 34 years of age, a chronic pill dropper and boozer. He was able to walk when he was booked in, and he was okay when the check was made, but he was dead on arrival in hospital. And don't I recall that during the course of the inquest, or the inquiry, it was suggested that he may have been smothered among the bodies jammed into the drunk tank. That
suggestion was made because, as you know, there's 133 people in there on that particular day. As I understand it, there was somewhere in the vicinity of about 20 in there, and it's a small room, as you'll see in the
something like the Black Hole of Calcutta. Now, you spent 2 nights there, didn't you?
We spent what we thought would be a busy Friday. It turned out to be a quiet one. It was an off week, no welfare checks, no payday, but still fairly busy. So then we went back.
Then you went back. So first we're going to look at the quiet night at the drunk tank, and then we're going to look at a busy night in the drunk tank. So if Henry will roll the film on the quiet night at the drunk tank, we'll see what it's all about on a quiet night.
This is a hotel. That's the name given this place by the chronic alcoholics who frequent Vancouver Skid Road. It's actually the 5th floor drunk tank of the city jail. It's early in the evening, and so far there's only 1 guest. But already 2 floors down at the booking desk, other guests are signing in.
What are your medical problems? Yeah? Yeah? Are you on any medication right now? Can you make out what you're saying?
Do you have any medical problems, Mary?
Yes, I do.
What are they?
Periodance.
I beg your pardon?
Periodance.
Can I come in? Okay, Mary.
Search your jacket. Mary. Sign your name, Mary. Okay. Gotta go. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Want a hand?
Come on this way, Mary.
Women like Mary make up a small percentage of the clientele at this hotel. They sleep it off in rooms on the 4th floor. Men like Henry are locked up on the 5th.
61. Check for.
We get the drunk, the dirty, chronic drunk that nobody else will handle.
The worst kind?
Yes. It's 1,000 to 1,300 a month. And this is split between the guys on that have the Friday or Saturday night out and chronic repeaters. These repeaters may be in 4 times a week. Some days, if they got lots of money, they're in twice a day.
Of the drunks you bring in, what percentage of them would be what you call this chronic variety?
About half of them.
50%?
Yes.
Are here all the time?
Right. We know them by their first names, and they know us very well.
What can be done for these men?
Well, there's nothing I think that we can do. We just keep them long enough so that they can probably cross the street on their own. And what the city really needs is a center where they can be taken and dried out for 2 or 3 days, so that they can face the streets again.
Where do you live, Henry? Where do you live?
We got residents tonight. A resident for tonight. That's the boy. 5 minutes, Henry.
Because the vogue now of mixing pills and alcohol, men at the booking desk receive additional training in first aid, and they're taught to look at a man's eyes and his demeanor and to see if, in fact, if he walked in, suddenly he becomes very sleepy and lays down and is hard to rouse. They're told to tell the medical nurse who come down and check them out and to decide whether, in fact, we should keep this man as a drunk or send him to the hospital.
Is there a police policy of who you pick up, what drunk sort of qualifies to be spending his 4 hours in the drunk tank?
If the man is somewhat capable of making his way home, then he's allowed to go. And we certainly don't want to go back to the days where we picked everybody up for drunkenness and sent them to court.
Mm-hmm. So he has to be pretty bad to get here?
Yes, he has to be incapable of taking care of himself.
Come on, that's the boy.
I'm not drunk.
I know that. I could tell. I could tell right away.
I'm not drunk.
I could tell that right away. Come on. Oh, you're being good. Right down here.
What am I in here?
Well, you're in here for drunk.
But I'm not drunk.
Well, it must be a mistake. You have the slips? Then it must be a mistake, Henry.
The guest list, in addition to Henry, looks very much the same night after night. A practicing dentist is signed in here, as have war veterans and war heroes. And Friday night's guest list even included the cousin of a judge. All have the same problem, overtaken by booze.
We keep them for 4 hours, which is really not long enough. Some of them are not really sober by that time because they're very hard drinkers. But we feel it's long enough to let them face the streets again.
The drunks are watched very closely. And each hour, a police nurse examines them individually.
Sit down. Yeah, just sit down for a few minutes, okay? That's the stuff. Come on.
I know it.
That's the boy.
Nobody should be in.
Now, you haven't got so far to fall, okay?
Blind? Have the leather.
You're fine. You're fine.
You should take it easy with the booze if you're an epileptic. You know
Guy's been in there for 18 hours. When are you gonna let him go?
Could you check my ear, please? I got the rock.
The guy right over there.
I know.
Why do you bring him in here?
So-called 4 hours.
He's no
Bullshit,
business
4
here.
hours.
He's got no business here.
Hey, Henry, what's your middle name, Henry?
Hepburn.
Hepburn. Henry, ever been arrested before?
Never.
Never. I don't believe it. Hey, Henry, you got any marks, scars, or tattoos? Nothing. Man, he's clean. He's a clean liver.
The men on the streets, while they're answering calls of of men down, quite often men who are drunk and incapable. They can't answer calls on burglaries and other serious crimes. The police department would really like to get out of the business. If we could do that and just concentrate on the criminal charges, that would be ideal.
You're not helping them at all here?
I don't feel we are. We're just, we're not even drying them out as the courts used to.
A facility, a detox center that's going to go in next year, long overdue?
Oh yes, right on overdue. It's, at least there they will get some kind of detention and treatment. Here it's just a revolving door on a policy.
And antiquated facilities?
Well, certainly we're 25 years old here, and I think that people expect different conditions nowadays.
The system isn't working. Police aren't helping the drunks, and they're not in a position to help themselves. The Vancouver Police Department has been trying for 10 years to turn the babysitting job of drunks over to somebody who can help. They hope to have a detoxification center next year that will achieve that end. As it is now, the drunk tank is a disgrace. The chronic alcoholics leave here still in a state of intoxication with one thought on their mind: where's the next drink? A few will be back in a matter of hours. Others will be back at their hotel tomorrow.
Next, Brian, you're going to take us to a dirtier night at the drunk tank, and then you and I will have a minute or two to come up with what we think should be done, right?
A payday.
Brian Cosford, what's next on our drunk tank report?
October 27th, it's a welfare weekend, a payday weekend, and it's busier.
Okay, let's roll the film for the busier night at the drunk tank, and we'll fill as we go. See what's happening there this time round.
Well, Jack, here it is again, Friday night. Again, we're at the drunk tank. Part of a facility that hasn't been renovated for 25 years. This is one of the drunk tank units. It's early in the evening. So far, it's empty. But it's a welfare payment weekend, also a payday. It promises to be full as the evening progresses.
Come on, let's go. Yeah, come on. That's the one. Hiya. No weapons of any sort. That's none. What's your name? What's your name?
That wasn't Henry again, was it? No.
No, this is another drunk, but one who makes the trip quite frequently. He's used to this wagon.
Did you see any repeaters come back in the same night?
We saw some come in, and they were put out about 4 hours later. An hour later, they were back.
You're coming to the hospital with us. You let them go and check you out, Pop, first, okay? Come on, Pop. Let's go towards that elevator, okay?
This chap is a chronic repeater. He's 80 years old.
Poor old soul. See, in the good old days, as the policeman said in your first interview, sent them off to Ocala to save their pension money and dry out, and they came back healthy.
26. January 26th. What year?
Well, we know what stopped that. The courts were overloaded.
Right. They don't charge them anymore. You just hold them and release them.
Quick. Come on, wake up, answer the questions.
Wake up and answer the question, sister.
As you can see, some of the people have to be handled with rubber gloves, and it kind of speaks for itself.
Sure does. Well, you know, alcohol awareness. Let people see it as it is. This is the one. This is the one that bothers me. It really does. When you first showed me that, I said, we can't show that. And you said, yes, we can. Why can we show it?
At first, we would think that this particular individual would be a spastic, an epileptic, and he's in the midst of a fit. But just prior to him going into his routine, he was checked out by the police nurse, and she in turn gave the word to the sergeant, who said, no, he's just drunk, there's no medical problem. And it turned out he was just faking it. They took him upstairs, they found a knife on him.
It's his routine.
Yeah.
Who would be a policeman in the drunk tank?
They trade them off every 6 months because it's a shift that is not that desirable.
Oh, not that desirable. It's abominable. But I think we've got some suggestions to make.
Some of your regular Skid Row type alcoholic will come in. He's defecated himself. He's wet from the waist down with urine. He's covered from the head down in head lice, body lice. Some of them have injuries that are septic and gangrenous, and you know, generally just a mess. And if they can't get in as a drunk, they'll use other methods to get in, i.e. break a window or cause a disturbance or something on the street to ensure that they do get picked up. Around about 11 o'clock at night, and they go to bed for the night.
A pretty disgusting mess, isn't it?
Yeah, on the whole it is, yeah.
You find it gets to you?
Yeah, it does. It gets to you. That's why it's, you know, it's not a good idea to be up here for any length of time, you know. It definitely has an effect on the young policeman.
How many drunks were booked in that particular night, Brian?
62, and although it was a busier night than the first night we went, it was really sort of like a quiet payday weekend because it wouldn't be unheard of to have 80, 90 through there in a night.
You can imagine how it was the night of the Sea Festival weekend when they had how many drunks in there?
133.
133. See anybody with collars and ties?
Beg your pardon?
Anybody with collars and ties? There were no well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, you know, all wondering why they were there, and what a sobering effect for somebody who's never been in there. All of a sudden you're rammed into this 20 by 20 tank, and there's 2 of them. And all these people lying out, chronic drunks, some have messed themselves up.
It's still a lot better than it used to be in the bad old days, but it's still horrible. And Brian and I will have some suggestions as to how it might be tackled after this break. How many drunks in a year in that tank?
15,000.
Used to be 30,000, didn't it?
Yeah, that was under the old law, when the Liquor Control Act, when they could charge you and they could take you away, dry you out in a facility. And of course the courts got too full, so they changed the law. It's the Summary Convictions Act now.
So now we pick up 15,000.
Yeah, put them in there for 4 hours.
Who, I know the police want properly to get rid of much of this problem. Who should go into that drunk tank? I mean, in fact, in your view.
The violent ones, the ones that you couldn't control in a detox center, they might start a fight, and there's plenty of fighting in that tank. And ones that they might pick up for obstructing or any other crime that they want to question later.
What you're saying is that the only people who should go in are those who are really violent, 1, and 2, those who must be questioned by the police in connection with other offences committed while they were drunk or involved in their drunken behaviour in some way or another.
Right, an estimated 50% of the time and effort in that jail goes into dealing with these drunks.
Well, now I see on the note I got from the Alcohol and Drug Commission that this new detox centre they're going to open, where is it?
It's on Great Northern Way.
That's the old dog pound.
That's right.
It's going to be compulsory. In other words, compulsory treatment in that detox centre. Well, might that not help, or will they go to the jail first before they go there?
Depends whose definition of the word compulsory you're looking at, because it'll be handled by sheriff's deputies, and if they're in a situation where they feel that this particular person is violent, and now he may not be...
You've got to be joking.
He may not be violent according to...
Are they going to pick them up from the police and take them there?
Yeah. But well, their definition of whether this guy is violent or not, it may be they'll just ship him right back to the...
Well, they've had trouble handling violent criminals, violent drunks, haven't they?
Oh, that's for sure.
Anyway, it might be a step in the right direction. We want to give it all the boost it can, because the object of the exercise is to reduce the number of people jammed into those well, they become filthy. They're clean to begin with, drunk tanks. And it's the first and probably the last time you'll ever do a stand-up for television beside a urinal, isn't it?
I hope so.
Any phone calls, Linda? Go ahead, please.
Oh, Jack, my name is Newman. I used to work in Ocala.
Yes, sir.
I worked down in Westgate B in the old dorm, and we used to have Tier 8 for the old alcoholic.
Yeah.
And you see a result there, these old guys, they're just dying because of some do-gooders, right?
Or in other words, your policy, and this has been said before, our policy now kills the old alcoholics off much quicker.
That's right, because when the old guys came in, we used to see, you know, there was 2 guys looking after them on the dorm, except on the graveyard shift when there was 1. You know, we used to rush them to the hospital, and all of a sudden they changed the act, and these old guys, you know, you don't dry them out in 4 hours or 4 days. I mean, really and truly, some of these guys we dealt with had 600 and 700 times.
But we're not going to go back to that system, Brian, are we? We're not going to put people back in the bucket for alcoholism.
They just, you know, the system they've got right now was set up by bureaucrats and people that really don't know what they're doing.
You'd rather see them go somewhere to dry out compulsorily?
I would, because, you know, what are you going to do?
Don't know. Thanks for your call. Go ahead, please. No, this one. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack.
Morning.
Good morning to you, too, and to Brian. I experienced several trips through those places myself, and I found that the treatment I got was always fair, but something to be desired in the way of human.
Well, I mean, you can't really blame the police for it, I don't think.
No, I know I don't, but I just want to say that it's developed for me that through following the advice of someone in Ocala who once told me that if I put my energies to...
Are you okay now? Have you beaten the problem?
Pardon?
Have you beaten the problem?
4 years without a drink.
Best of luck. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. I'm an epileptic.
Yes, sir.
And I had one experience where I was placed in the tank.
Yep.
For the 4-hour period that they're talking about. It was from Friday night.
Did you have a seizure during that time?
I had, well, that's what I was trying to say. I was in an epileptic seizure when I was picked up as drunk.
Well, that can happen. That was why Brian made it. Brian, just tell me the circumstances of that man whom the police and the nurse were convinced was feigning.
Okay, he was in, when you get booked in on the 3rd floor, usually there's a crowd at a busy time, so they put you in a little holding tank off to the side. And he started to hyperventilate, so they called a nurse. And the nurse came in, checked him out, looked at his eyes, checked him over, and it was her conclusion that he was strictly...
They don't have a full-time doctor there, do they?
They have a couple of doctors that come in the morning, and they're available to look at the drunks if there's a problem, but not as a rule of thumb.
Well, I'll agree with this caller. There's always a danger that an epileptic may be picked up as drunk and treated as drunk, which is bad. But on this one, we have the assurance of the police that the man was feigning, and I hope you had a better experience than that in the jail, sir.
We might also point out that that's one of the positions of the police department is that
they don't want them.
They're not doctors. You know, they're making a judgment that this person is drunk.
Brian, just to sum up, from what your police told you and what you know yourself, who should go into that drunk tank? I mean, how much would it cut down the population of the drunk tank if they took away the straight drunks and left only the violence and the criminals? For those being questioned for crime.
20%, probably less?
That would be left.
Yeah.
80% would be out of the way in a compulsory detox center.
Most of them are just drinkers, happy drinkers, but they're chronically ill.
It's a miserable situation, isn't it? Who would want to be a policeman in the drunk tank? Would you?
Nope.
Not for all the tea in China.
2 nights was enough.
2 nights was enough.
Sober, I might add.
Well, that goes without saying. Okay. Thanks very much, Brian. I think that was an excellent report, and I think it shows people the problem. You can make all the clean drunk tanks you want in the world, but many of these people, perhaps 80%, should not be there. Just thinking, Brian, maybe we should throw a clip of that dirty night at the drunk tank up to Volrich and Brown when they're here. Friday morning, is it, Linda? Volrich and Brown.
Yes.